The night wind howled outside the timber cabin, carrying with it the scent of rain and dust from the prairie. Inside, the fire crackled low in the hearth, throwing amber light across the wooden walls. The woman sat near it, her broad frame hunched slightly forward, sleeves rolled up past her elbows, her face glowing softly in the warmth. Her name was Clara May, the cook. Her hands, strong, flour-dusted, and steady, had always been meant for work, not for being held. At least, that's what she told herself when the silence of the evenings grew too heavy. She had come to this place, a lonely ranch at the edge of nowhere, not to be seen, but to serve. Her life had been kitchens and campfires, baking bread before dawn and scrubbing pots long after sunset. People didn't notice her much except when they were hungry. And that was fine with her. It was safer that way. Safer to stay invisible than to be reminded of every whispered comment she'd ever overheard. Too heavy. Too plain. No man would want her. But that night things had changed. The master of the house, John Whitmore, a man whose grief hung on him like a second skin, had buried his wife 2 days before. The baby, a boy barely 2 months old, had cried since sunrise and refused to take the bottle. Clara had watched from the doorway, helpless, as John's rough hands trembled with exhaustion. A man could face a storm, a herd, even death, but not the sound of his own child crying with hunger. "Sir?" she'd said quietly then, stepping forward. Her voice came out softer than she expected. "I can help." He had looked up, eyes hollow, beard untrimmed. "You're the cook," he'd muttered, his tone breaking somewhere between gratitude and pride. "Yes, sir," she'd said, folding her hands nervously before her. "But I lost a babe once. Years ago. I can nurse him." The silence after that had been long enough for the wind to moan through the cracks in the cabin wall. John had looked at her, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time. Not just the woman who brought his meals, but the person standing before him, heart open and trembling. And then, in a voice hoarse from grief, he had whispered, "Then stay." Now in the soft glow of the fire, Clara held the child close. The little one's cries had faded into gentle breaths, his tiny fingers curling against her blouse. She could feel his heartbeat against her own, fragile but steady. For the first time in years, she felt useful in a way that wasn't about cooking or cleaning. It was about life itself. John stood by the window, arms folded, staring out at the endless dark. He was a tall man, carved by the land itself, broad-shouldered, quiet, with a sorrow that had aged him beyond his years. Every few moments he'd glance toward her and the baby, his expression caught between guilt and relief. Clara didn't look up. She didn't want to see pity in his eyes, but she could feel his gaze, heavy and uncertain, like he was trying to reconcile the image of his wife, slender, delicate, gone, with the woman before him now. The baby stirred, and Clara hummed a lullaby under her breath, the same one she used to sing to her lost child. The melody drifted through the cabin like a prayer. John turned from the window at last. His boots creaked against the floorboards as he stepped closer. "Thank you," he said simply. His voice was rough, but the words were sincere. She nodded, still looking down. "He just needed warmth, sir. That's all." John hesitated, then spoke again. "You didn't have to do this." Her throat tightened. "Maybe I did," she said softly. "Sometimes God gives you a second chance when you least expect it." The fire popped, and for a brief moment neither spoke. Outside, the wind began to calm. Inside, something small and fragile, hope, maybe stirred in the quiet space between them. As the baby drifted into sleep, Clara brushed a tear from her cheek she hadn't realized had fallen. She wasn't the sort of woman anyone noticed. Not beautiful, not slim, not the kind of woman a man would write poetry for. But in that moment, with the baby's breath steady, and John watching her with something new in his eyes, something almost like respect, she felt more seen than she ever had before. And that, she thought, was enough for now.